Good morning and welcome to Onward in Love and Caregiving. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the president and CEO of GJP International, which is Greg Johnson Partnerships International. And here in New York, I have the great privilege of serving as the chief advisor to the CEO of Emblem Health for family caregiving. I want to welcome you to this broadcast. And this morning, I want to celebrate with all of you spring. It has come in this past week, and it's a time again of a lot of new beginnings, a time of blossoming, as it were, and a time for each of us, having rested and been dormant for a season, as it were, to look and say, what has been dormant within me that now needs to spring forth? What have I been nurturing? What have I been caring for during this time of dormancy, as it were? But now we can spring forth. So we're going to think a little bit about that today. But before I do, I want to take one moment to express my enormous thanks to my brand new social media administrator, Casey Izzati. Cassandra Izzati is her proper name, but we all call her Casey. She is in Jakarta, Indonesia, and I am so thrilled with that beautiful, beautiful post that she did of our spring calendar, as it was. And I've heard from so many of you that you liked it, and I keep passing that on. I can't say enough about how wonderful it is to engage a young person who understands all of these pieces of social media to become my social media administrator. And frankly, having her located on the other side of the world means that GJPI does 24/7. There's someone taking care of it. That is absolutely wonderful. And seriously, Casey, thank you a million. And I want all of you folks to know, if you're looking for a social media administrator, send me an email. You know how to do that. It's Greg Johnson, all small case, Greg Johnson at gjp-international.com. And I'll be delighted to connect you with this very talented woman. Now, this week also, in addition to being spring, has been a very special time in many parts of the world. And we, as an international broadcast, like to honor those, because as we are caring for our loved ones, these periods, which often connect with some religious significance or some cultural significance, are times of reflection. They're times of new beginning. Well, what has happened in this past week? All right, it was spring, the spring equinox in this hemisphere, the fall one in the southern hemisphere. But it was also the new year in Bali. And that is celebrated with a very special tradition. And I'm going to take a moment to share it with all of you who don't know it, because I think it teaches us so much. I've had the privilege of being in Bali for what's known as Nyepi, Nyepi, Nyepi. And it is the last day of the calendar year. And so the night before Nyepi, it is a day of silence. I'll explain that more. But the night before, there are great festivities. It's sort of an Indonesian Mardi Gras with all of these characters and mythological characters all scaring away the evil, getting rid of the evil. It's known as Oga Oga. And it is wild, and it's filled with the creativity that the Balinese are legendary for. But at midnight, everything goes quiet. The lights are turned off. The gas of the stoves are turned off. It's a day of fasting, of quiet, of reflection and prayer. And then as night comes on Nyepi, people go to sleep, and with the dawn, they rise giving thanks for a new year. Not only a new day, but a new year. And renewed, they light the flames. They open the businesses. and life goes on. It's a very special holiday, but I don't know of any that quite celebrates the New Year Day, waiting for it, in that silent reflectiveness, which is the spirituality of my beloved Bali. People often ask me, what is it about Bali that is so precious to you? And it's living in the spirituality. I have been there on many occasions, and after 40 some years of going back and forth, I have known many people who have died. And I've always said they left paradise, very spiritual. The veil is very thin to go home to heaven, however you define those words. And it's absolutely true. It's a very powerful and spiritual. People go within constantly. Namaste, as we speak of. Now, what else happened this past week? Well, Ramadan began, the time of reflection for the Muslim people, in which they fast during the day. They do eat at the nighttime when they have their sahur, but it is a time of reflection once again, of renewal. There are so many things we can learn by that. And what continues also is Lent. We're in the middle of Lent, and next week becomes Passover. So in each of the faiths, once again, you've heard me say this again and again, and I cannot say it strongly enough. This is a time of high spiritual energy. And I say to you, jump on it. No matter what your theology may have been, you're fighting with it, whatever it is, keep fighting, keep digging, keep going deeper. Don't be afraid to look here and look there. It's all one, with a lot of roads. As my wonderful driver so long ago said to me in Bali, and I have loved this must be 30 years ago. He was an older man at that point who had never gone to school. He was probably in his late 40s, which was getting old at that time for a Balinese. And he looked at me and he said, Mr. Gregg, we were driving up to Mount Agung, the big mountain. He said, Mr. Gregg, why do people have so much trouble with religion? He said, it's so simple. God's at the top of the mountain, but look at all the roads to get up there. And I looked at him and I said, my dear, dear Agung, don't ever go to school. Don't ever study. You're the wisest man I know. And I thanked him. And I've remembered that. And every time I travel to Mount Agung, I can hear Agung saying, why do they have so much trouble? God in all of the names is there, waiting for us to return. A union to be made, one of Father Rohr's favorite statements. So this is a springtime. So let's spring into action and not be afraid of difficult moments. There was a piece that I found, and you know I'm always finding things on Facebook that I want to share with you because they help us in our caregiving journeys as well as in our own lives, and those two are very much united much of the time. I love this. Just consider this as you move forward in this spring of new life and new thoughts. People will teach you how to love by not loving you back. People will teach you how to forgive by not apologizing. People will teach you kindness by their judgment. People will teach you how to grow by remaining stagnant. Pay attention when you're going through a painful and mysterious time. Listen to the wisdom life is trying to teach you. I love that. Listen to the wisdom life is trying to teach you. And then this morning, you know, I often share with you from readings that are very special to me. Well, one of the great books in Alcoholics Anonymous is the 24-hour book, one I begin my day with and often go back to as the day goes on because it's a very short little paragraph and a meditation. And this is March. This was earlier in the week, but it was March 21st, and I wanted to share it with you. In AA, we forget about the future. We know from experience that as time goes on, the future takes care of itself. Everything works out well, and for us in recovery, as long as we stay sober. All we need to think about is today. When we get up in the morning and see the sun shining in the window, we thank God that He has given us another day to enjoy because we're sober. A day in which we may have a chance to help somebody else. What a gift. And this I love. This is the meditation. All is fundamentally well. That does not mean that all is well on the surface of things, but it does mean that God's in His heaven and that He has a purpose for the world, which will eventually work out when enough human beings are willing to follow. I love this next quote. Wearing the world as a loose garment. Wearing the world as a loose garment means not being upset by the surface wrongness of things, but feeling deeply secure in the fundamental goodness and purpose in the universe. And every time I hear that phrase, a loose garment, well, where do you think I immediately go? Of course, I go back to Bali and our sarong, which takes care of everything we need, just wrapped loosely around us, and off we go. Oh, that freedom. Oh, that freedom. Not having to be in control, but rather to be of service. Let's think about that. Now, this morning, I'm going to conclude once again with a prayer. You can tell how old this copy of this book is. Peace Be Still, Prayers and Affirmations for Family Caregivers. And this I wrote with the Reverend Marian Gambardella many years ago. And it's a book that I turn to very frequently, for it's a very inclusive book and one that I invite you to consider for yourselves. And I thought this prayer was particularly appropriate as we talk of spring, if we talk of Nyepi, Ramadan, Lent, Passover. It's times of renewal. Here we go. Oh Lord, thank you. When the pressures, the fears, the distractions of this worldly material life become too much for me, I can stop. Take a few focused, deep breaths, claim my spiritual essence, and begin my day all over in partnership with you, O precious and ever divine one. I hear you call. Be still and know that I am God. I need to hear that message again and again. Be still and know that I am God. Yes, you are God, and every time I forget, I get into such difficulties physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Thus, at this very moment, with joy, gratitude, and happiness, I begin my day anew. And I pray that you will as well. Thank you so much for this time together. It's always so special. I look forward to it each week as I prepare for Onward in Love and Caregiving. And as we always say, as we conclude all of our broadcasts, namaste. God bless. I'll see you real soon. Thank you.